If I can see or feel my own hand, my own workings within it, then it's still too close to me, and I've got to move it even further away so that it becomes something other than myself. It's almost like these two work well, and these two work well, maybe. And when it touches that moment, then that becomes like an arbitrary cut-off point, because you could go further. And the trouble is overcomplicating an idea, which I do frequently. You know? It's the sin of the artist when you have an idea and then you fuck it up. And Francis Bacon used to do it all the time, so I'm in good company. Where you think you've got to a point where it's really good, and then you do that next thing, and it's the worst possible thing you could have done, and you've just gone overboard, and you think, sod, I've ruined it. And there's no going back, you know, because yes, never play to the gallery. I think, but you never learn that until much later on, I think. But never work for other people at what you do. Always remember that the reason that you initially started working was that there was something inside yourself that you felt that if you could manifest it in some way, you would understand more about yourself and how you coexist with the rest of society. And I think it's terribly dangerous for an artist to fulfill other people's expectations. I think they generally produce their worst work when they do that. And the other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth. And when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
What's up, PopTech? Wow. I'm thrilled to be here to present Igniting the Imagination. It's musical reimaginings and explorations of David Bowie's creative process. I was privileged to work closely with David for a number of years, including multiple performances at Carnegie Hall and many hours in the studio, laying down string tracks on his recordings, such as Heathen and Toy, and remix of Time Will Crawl. So I can tell you from firsthand experience that David was very smart, very funny, and one of the most creative people I ever had the privilege to know and to work with. So rather than me talk about his creative process, I'm just going to let David speak for himself and share with you how he inspired me and the rest of the world.
This is the way I do cut-ups. I don't know if it's like the way Brian Geisen does his or Barrows does his, I don't know. But this is the way I do. I've used this method only on a couple of actual songs. What I've used it for more than anything else is igniting anything that might be in my imagination. I mean, you can often come up with very interesting attitudes to look into. I tried doing it with diaries and things, and I was finding out amazing things about me and what I'd done and where I was going. And a lot of the things that I'd done, it seemed that it would predict things about the future or tell me a lot about the past. It's really quite an astonishing thing. I suppose it's a very Western tarot. I don't know. Anyway, let's see what happens. I'm an alligator.
When we were in Los Angeles in '74, whatever it was, you were still using that technique of cut-ups. Do you still use it, or do you do...
Yeah. Increasingly so, to a great extent on Outside. Even say on the new album, Earthling, if you put 3 or 4 disassociated ideas together and created awkward relationships with them, the unconscious intelligence that comes from those pairings is really quite startling sometimes, quite provocative. A friend of mine in San Francisco developed a program for me on the computer, which enables me to do it really quickly.
So instead of going through the laborious process
of cutting things up,
you use your computer.
Yeah, and you can work with far more material. So I'll take articles out of newspapers, poems that I've written, pieces of other people's books, and put them all into this little warehouse of this container of information, and then hit the random button, and it'll randomize everything, and I'll get reams of papers back out of it with interesting ideas, and then I'll either take sentences verbatim as it spews them out, or there might be something within a sentence which triggers off an idea.
Now, I'm going to attempt to perform a musical cut-up. Improvisation right before your very eyes and ears, using elements of never before played together musical bits, and let's see what happens. So we have a run of show, and of course, it runs in different directions. So that's what happens when you're an improviser. So I'm actually going to put my closing remarks and play my last piece, and then have it go directly into the last video. So thank you for sharing your time with me and with David today at PopTech. I leave you with one more reimagining of David's work, and then I'm going to let David have the last word.
This is goodbye. This is goodbye.
Philip Glass had asked me to do the concert, and he'd also asked David to do the concert, and David lives across the street from me, so he called me up and said, hey, rather than perform separately, why don't we just perform together? And You know, I think David Bowie is probably the most remarkable musician of the latter half of the 20th century, so if he wants to collaborate, who am I to say no?
The little band I've got together is fantastic. It's like an all-star band. I have my old producer, Tony Visconti, playing bass, a wonderful violinist and her cohorts, Martha Mooke, on the quartet. I've got Moby on guitar, and I've got Philip Glass is my pianist. I started reading and getting interested in Tibet around 1962, something like that. When I was a kid, I went to the Buddhist Society in Eccleston Square in London, and I met my first guru, a guy called Chimi Yongdung Rinpoche, and he became a good friend of mine for a few years, but told me quite alarmingly that I should stop thinking about being a Buddhist monk and continue being a musician. He made the right choice, I suppose. I am David Bowie, in tune with World Beat on CNN.